It was less than 2 weeks after the fatal shooting of 20-year-old Donovan Lewis that the Columbia, Ohio police chief has issued a policy change. That's right. So for warrants that are served late at night, things will not be done the same way in which they were when they took the life of 20-year-old Donovan Lewis. But before we dive in, here's a reminder of what that horrible shooting was. And I have to alert you that the following footage is quite graphic.
We're going to send that dog in.
43D 919
Hands. Hands. Oh. He's got some in his hand. Some in his hand. Hands, hands, hands. Hands, hands, hands. Hands.
Let me see your right hand. Like this.
Crawl out here. Crawl out. Crawl out. Hands behind your back. Call for a 24. Hands.
4310 started to 24.
Get your hand behind. Stop resisting. He's pulling away.
104.
Yes.
We're on the 3.
Stomach.
Okay. You want me to go near that?
Yep.
Yes, that was the video in which Mr. Lewis's life was taken while they were executing that warrant. Now, on Thursday, Chief Elaine Bryant directed the Columbus Division of Police to seek high-level approval now for some warrants that are served between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. Now, Bryant's memo, it read this in part. Effective immediately and until revised or rescinded by me, no pre-planned arrest warrants shall be served at private residence for all misdemeanor offenses, including domestic violence and nonviolent felony offenses between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. without the prior approval of a lieutenant or above. Pre-planned means the sole reason you have decided to go to the address is to serve an arrest warrant. This policy does not apply to tactical units, for example, SWAT, INTAC, and task force personnel. Now, Lewis, who had been shot about 2:30 a.m. on August 30th when police executed a felony arrest warrant for alleged improper handling of a firearm, domestic violence, and assault. Well, one of the officers executing that warrant, that was Officer Ricky Anderson, had fired his gun when Lewis appeared to raise his hand. Chief Bryant said a device appearing to be a vape pen was later found on the bed right next to him. There was no weapon ever found. Now, Anderson, that's a 30-year veteran of the force assigned to the K-9 unit, he was placed on paid leave, which is protocol for officers who fire their weapons on duty, as the investigation is ongoing into whether he engaged in any wrongdoing. Now, Columbus police have had a number of high-profile fatal police shootings for the past 2 years. December 2020, Columbus officer Adam Coy, it's on the right, was fired after fatally shooting unarmed Andre Hill, who was holding a cell phone. Now, the city reached a $10 million settlement with Hill's family over that deadly shooting in May of 2021. But just the month before that, Columbus officer Nicholas Reardon killed 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant. You may remember that. Now, although he was later cleared of any wrongdoing, it left a stain and sting when it came to the city. And so in September of 2021, the Department of Justice opened a review of Columbus PD policing practices. And that was done at the request of the mayor and the city attorney. I'm really glad to know that officials have engaged in some kind of review to ensure that the Columbus PD is not violating civil rights of its citizens. At the same time, this situation with Lewis and executing this warrant, it does give me pause. It gives me considerable pause. I do very much appreciate that the chief of police is now instituting these practices. I just don't necessarily know how much things are going to change, because people sleep at all different hours of the day. They're not necessarily involved and active to be able to go to the door, hands up. And so there's just a lot of concerns over this continuous execution of these warrants. Jessica.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like good news initially, right? It's a good step, it sounds like, to get rid of these no-knock warrants. But now I think we're just going to see the police pushing for higher charges so that they can keep doing these no-knock warrants. I don't have a lot of faith in criminal justice reforms, especially incremental ones that are being announced by police chiefs. What happened to Donovan Lewis was insane. It's all on video. It's all in the police body-worn camera footage. He was shot within moments of the officer opening the door. And this argument that he was reaching for something, possibly a weapon, we now know there was a vape pen nearby. I didn't see him reach for anything. He fired so fast. I am not convinced he believed his life was under threat at all. And that's why it's insane that this officer is on paid leave. He's still being paid. He should be suspended without pay. This investigation should not take more than a few days when it's all on video. It's very clear what happened there and why I think they take so long for these investigations when the actions are clearly there on video for everybody to see is because they wait for media coverage to die down a little bit so that when they finally announce their decision in the case, they're not met with backlash from the public. And the last time I was on Indisputable with Dr. Ritchie, we talked about how people are up in arms with the conversation around defunding the police when the police are defunding themselves. They're paying out $10 million settlements for wrongfully executing citizens. They are defunding themselves. That's a lot of public taxpayer dollars. And so if you care about where your tax dollars go to, these are local tax dollars that you pay into a pool of money. If you don't want these going to lawsuits where they have to settle with families where citizens are killed by the police, maybe you too have a stake in criminal justice reform in this country.
Yeah, I really think we the people should see it that way. I think that a lot of people, what they end up seeing is that this money ends up coming from the pool of resources that is taxpayer funds. And then you see departments and people in leadership end up taking money from whether it's education, transportation, roads to fill the coffers of policing units of law enforcement. And so without the consequences, it seems like nothing will change. No matter who is paying, it just nothing is going to change until law enforcement actually faces actual consequences.